The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the living room as I returned home from work. The familiar scent of lavender wafted through the air, a fragrance my wife, Sarah, adored. It was a scent that had once brought me comfort, but today it felt suffocating, a reminder of the life I thought we shared. I dropped my briefcase by the door, the sound echoing in the silence of our home. As I walked through the hallway, I noticed the door to our bedroom slightly ajar. A flicker of unease danced in my stomach, but I brushed it off. Sarah often left it open, a habit I found endearing. I approached, ready to greet her with a smile, but as I pushed the door open, the sight before me shattered my world. There she was, my wife, entwined in the arms of another man. Their laughter echoed in the room, a sound that had once been ours, now twisted into something grotesque. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a caged animal desperate to escape. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me, leaving me suspended in disbelief. "Sarah?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension. She turned, her eyes wide with shock, and in that instant, I saw the truth reflected in her gaze. The man beside her, a stranger to me, scrambled to pull away, his face a mask of guilt. "James," Sarah stammered, but the words fell flat, meaningless in the face of the betrayal. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, each one vying for dominance. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I stood frozen, a spectator in my own life. The room felt stifling, the air thick with unspoken words. I turned on my heel and walked away, each step heavy with the weight of my shattered trust. I needed to escape, to breathe, to think. I stumbled into the kitchen, the cool tiles grounding me as I leaned against the counter. My mind raced, replaying the scene over and over, each iteration cutting deeper than the last. How could she do this to me? To us? We had built a life together, filled with dreams and promises. I thought we were happy. I thought I knew her. But now, all I felt was a hollow pit in my stomach, a gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume me. I poured myself a glass of water, my hands trembling as I brought it to my lips. The cool liquid did little to quench the fire of betrayal burning within me. I needed to process this, to understand what had happened. I had always prided myself on being a rational man, someone who could navigate the complexities of life with logic and reason. But this was different. This was personal. As I stood there, staring out the window at the fading light, a thought began to take shape in my mind. I had been wronged, and I would not let this go unanswered. I would not be the victim in this story. No, I would reclaim my narrative. The idea of revenge flickered in the back of my mind, a dark ember waiting to be stoked into a flame. I had to be strategic, I had to be patient. This was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. I would not allow her betrayal to define me. With a newfound resolve, I began to formulate a plan. I would gather information, observe her behavior, and learn everything I could about this man who had invaded my life. I would turn the tables, and when the time was right, I would strike. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in shadows, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer just a husband betrayed, I was a man on a mission. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. The night stretched on, and I found myself sitting in the dim light of the living room, the silence wrapping around me like a shroud. The shadows danced on the walls, flickering with the remnants of the day, and I couldn't shake the image of Sarah and that man from my mind. I replayed the scene over and over, each time feeling the sting of betrayal cut deeper. I had always considered myself a patient man, someone who took the time to understand the world around him. But now, I felt like a stranger in my own life, grappling with the reality that the woman I loved had chosen to share her heart and her body with someone else. I thought back to the moments we had shared, the laughter, the intimacy, the dreams we had woven together. They felt tainted now, like a beautiful painting marred by a careless brushstroke. I remembered our wedding day, the way she had looked in her white dress, radiant and full of hope. I had promised to love her through thick and thin, to stand by her side no matter what. But now, those vows felt like a cruel joke. How could she betray me so easily? How could she look me in the eye every day, knowing what she was doing behind my back? I closed my eyes, trying to block out the memories, but they flooded in uninvited. The quiet evenings spent cooking together, the lazy Sundays wrapped in each other's arms, the whispered secrets shared in the dark. Each memory was a dagger, twisting in my heart. I had trusted her completely, and now that trust lay in ruins. But as I sat there, a flicker of anger ignited within me. I had been wronged, and I would not let this define me. I would not be the man who wallowed in despair, I would be the man who took control. I needed to think strategically, to plan my next move with precision. I pulled out my phone, the screen illuminating my face in the dark. I opened the Notes app and began to type. Step 1. Gather information. I needed to know everything about this man who had invaded my life. Who was he? How did he know Sarah? What did he want? I remembered the few times Sarah had mentioned her work friends, the late nights at the office, the casual mentions of drinks after work. I had always trusted her, believing her when she said it was just work. But now, I realized I had been naive. I needed to dig deeper, to uncover the truth behind her lies. Step 2. Observe her behavior. I would watch her closely, noting any changes in her routine. I would pay attention to the little things, the way she smiled, the way she spoke, the way she moved. I needed to understand her motivations, to see if there were any signs of guilt or remorse. Step 3. Plan the confrontation. I would not confront her until I had all the pieces of the puzzle. I needed to be calm, collected, and in control. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I would be the one holding the cards, and when the time came, I would play them wisely. As I typed, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. This was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life, my dignity. I would not allow her betrayal to define me. I would rise from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. I glanced at the clock, the hands ticking away the minutes. It was late, but sleep eluded me. I needed to keep my mind sharp, to stay focused on my plan. I poured myself another glass of water, the cool liquid refreshing against my dry throat. In the days that followed, I became a silent observer in my own home. I watched Sarah as she moved through her daily routine, her laughter ringing hollow in my ears. I noted the little things, the way she would check her phone, the way she would smile at messages that made her cheeks flush. Each smile felt like a dagger, each laugh a reminder of the betrayal that lay beneath the surface. I began to piece together a timeline of her infidelity. Late nights at the office turned into weekends spent away, excuses piled upon excuses. I felt like a detective in my own life, gathering evidence, searching for the truth. I had to know who this man was, and I was determined to find out. As I delved deeper into my observations, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I was no longer the victim, I was the one in control. I would not let her get away with this. I would make her understand the consequences of her actions. But even as I plotted my revenge, a part of me still clung to the memories of our love. I remembered the way she would curl up next to me on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched our favorite shows. I remembered the way she would laugh at my jokes, her eyes sparkling with joy. Yet, those memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the reality of her betrayal. I had to remind myself that this was not just about love, it was about justice. I would reclaim my life, and I would do it on my terms. As the days turned into weeks, I felt the fire of determination grow within me. I was ready to execute my plan, to confront the woman who had shattered my trust. I would not be broken, I would rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. The days blurred into a routine, each one marked by the same cycle of observation and reflection. I had become a ghost in my own home, moving silently through the halls, watching Sarah as she went about her life, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Each day, I gathered more information, piecing together the fragments of her betrayal like a jigsaw puzzle. I had learned the name of the man who had invaded my life, Mark. He was a colleague of Sarah's, someone she had mentioned in passing during dinner conversations. I recalled her laughter when she spoke of him, the way her eyes sparkled with excitement. It made my stomach churn. I had always trusted her, believing her when she said they were just friends. But now, I knew better. I began to dig deeper into Mark's life. I discovered he was in his early 30s, a charming man with a magnetic personality. He was the type of guy who could light up a room with his smile, and I could see why Sarah had been drawn to him. But charm was a double-edged sword, and I was determined to use it against him. Step 1. Gather intel on Mark. I made it my mission to learn everything I could about him. I scoured social media, looking for any clues that might reveal his character. I found pictures of him at parties, surrounded by friends, always the center of attention. I noted the way he posed, the confidence radiating from him. It was infuriating. I also discovered that he had a penchant for adventure, hiking, rock climbing, and weekend getaways. I couldn't help but wonder how many of those adventures had included Sarah. The thought made my blood boil, but I pushed it aside. I needed to stay focused. Step 2. Observe Sarah's interactions with Mark. I began to track her movements more closely. I noted the times she would leave for work, the late nights she would come home, and the subtle changes in her demeanor. She had become more secretive, her phone always within reach, her laughter tinged with a nervous edge. It was as if she was living a double life, and I was determined to expose it. I started to follow her, discreetly, of course. I would wait until she left for work, then I would trail behind, keeping a safe distance. I watched as she met up with Mark for lunch, their laughter ringing out like a cruel melody. I felt a pang of jealousy, but I quickly buried it. This was not about jealousy, this was about justice. I took notes, documenting every interaction, every smile shared between them. I wanted to build a case, to show her the extent of her betrayal. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, and I would be the one to deliver that message. Step 3. Plan the confrontation. I knew that when the time came, I needed to be calm and collected. I would not let my emotions get the best of me. I would confront her with the evidence I had gathered, and I would make her see the truth. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the pain she had caused. I envisioned the scene in my mind. I would wait until she returned home from work, her face flushed with excitement from her day. I would sit her down, my heart pounding in my chest, and I would lay it all out for her. I would show her the pictures, the messages, the proof of her infidelity. I wanted her to see the betrayal in black and white, to understand that I had not been blind to her lies. But as I planned, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in my stomach. What if she denied it? What if she tried to twist the narrative, to make me the villain in this story? I had to be prepared for every possible outcome. I needed to anticipate her reactions, to have a counter for every excuse she might throw my way. I spent hours crafting my words, rehearsing the confrontation in front of the mirror. I wanted to be strong, to stand my ground, but I also wanted to convey the hurt I felt. I wanted her to understand that this was not just about her betrayal, it was about the life we had built together, the trust she had shattered. As the days passed, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer the victim, I was the one in control. I had a plan, and I was ready to execute it. I would confront Sarah, and I would make her understand the consequences of her actions. But even as I plotted my revenge, a part of me still clung to the memories of our love. I remembered the way she would curl up next to me on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder as we watched our favorite shows. I remembered the way she would laugh at my jokes, her eyes sparkling with joy. Yet, those memories felt tainted now, overshadowed by the reality of her betrayal. I had to remind myself that this was not just about love, it was about justice. I would reclaim my life, and I would do it on my terms. As the day of the confrontation approached, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I was ready to face the truth, to confront the woman who had shattered my trust. I would not be broken, I would rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. The day had finally arrived. I had spent the last few days meticulously preparing for this moment, and now, as I stood in the living room, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination coursing through my veins. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through the windows, but the light felt cold against my skin. I glanced at the clock. Sarah would be home any minute. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I had rehearsed this moment countless times in my mind, but now that it was here, the weight of what I was about to do felt almost unbearable. I had gathered evidence of her betrayal, and I was ready to confront her. But a small part of me still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Perhaps there was an explanation for her late nights and secretive behavior. But I quickly pushed that thought aside. I had seen enough. I had watched her laugh with Mark, seen the way her eyes lit up when she received a message from him. I had to remind myself that this was not just about love, it was about justice. I would reclaim my life, and I would do it on my terms. The sound of the front door opening broke my reverie. I straightened up, my heart pounding in my chest as I heard her footsteps echoing through the hallway. She called out my name, her voice bright and cheerful, but it felt like a dagger to my heart. I forced a smile onto my face, masking the turmoil brewing inside me. "Hey, I'm in the living room," I called back, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within me. She entered the room, her hair cascading over her shoulders, a radiant smile on her face. "You won't believe the day I had," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. But as she caught sight of my expression, her smile faltered, confusion replacing her joy. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm but calm. Her expression shifted, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face. "Talk about what?" I gestured for her to sit down, my heart racing as I prepared to lay everything bare. "I know about Mark," I said, my voice steady. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw panic flicker across her face. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the pictures I had taken of her with Mark, the messages I had saved. "I've seen you with him, Sarah. I've watched you laugh and smile with him while I've been here, waiting for you." The color drained from her face as I handed her the phone. She stared at the screen, her expression shifting from shock to denial. "James, I can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Explain how you've been lying to me? How you've been unfaithful. I deserve to know the truth." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "It's not what you think. Mark and I. Not what I think." I shot back, my anger boiling over. "I've seen the way you look at him, the way you light up when he's around. You've betrayed me, Sarah. You've shattered everything we built together." Her shoulders slumped, and she looked down at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, James. I never meant for it to happen." "Never meant for it to happen?" I echoed, incredulous. "You made a choice, Sarah. You chose to be with him. You chose to lie to me." "I was lonely," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Things have been different between us for a while. I thought we were drifting apart, and Mark was there for me. Is that supposed to make it okay?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. "You could have talked to me. You could have told me how you felt. But instead, you chose to betray me." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I love you, James. I never stopped loving you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to the love we had shared, but the betrayal felt too deep. "Love isn't just a word, Sarah. It's an action. You've shown me that your love means nothing if you can so easily throw it away." I took a step back, my heart aching as I watched her crumble before me. "I need time to think," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do this right now." As I turned to leave the room, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I had confronted her, laid bare the truth of her betrayal, and now I needed to process everything. I walked out into the cool night air, the weight of the confrontation heavy on my shoulders. I had executed my plan, but the aftermath felt like a whirlwind. I had wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, but now I was left with a sense of emptiness. I had exposed the truth, but it had come at a cost. As I stood outside, staring up at the stars, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I had taken control of my narrative, but the road ahead felt uncertain. I knew I had to make a choice, to forgive and rebuild or to walk away and reclaim my life. But for now, I needed to think. I needed to process the confrontation and decide what my next move would be. The night air was thick with tension as I stood outside, my mind racing with the aftermath of the confrontation. I had laid bare the truth, and now I was left with the weight of my decision hanging heavily over me. I could hear Sarah's muffled sobs from inside the house, a haunting reminder of the love we once shared, now tainted by betrayal. I paced the yard, my thoughts spiraling. I had wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, to understand the depth of her betrayal, but now that I had confronted her, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I had exposed the truth, but it had come at a cost. As I walked back inside, I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. The sight of her, so broken and vulnerable, tugged at my heartstrings. I had wanted her to feel the pain I felt, but seeing her like this made me question everything. "James," she said, her voice muffled. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I was weak. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "Weakness isn't an excuse, Sarah. You made a choice. You chose to betray me." "I know," she said, looking up at me with tear-streaked cheeks. "But I love you. I never stopped loving you. I didn't know how to handle everything." "Love isn't just a feeling, it's an action," I replied, my voice firm. "You've shown me that your love means nothing if you can so easily throw it away." She looked down, shame washing over her features. "I know I messed up. I was scared. I thought we were drifting apart, and Mark was there for me when I needed someone." "Scared?" I echoed, incredulous. "You could have talked to me. You could have told me how you felt. But instead, you chose to betray me." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was selfish. I didn't think about how it would affect you. I just wanted to feel something again." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I wanted to believe her, to hold on to the love we had shared, but the betrayal felt too deep. "You've shattered everything we built together, Sarah. I don't know if I can forgive you." "I'll do anything to make it right," she pleaded, her eyes wide with desperation. "I'll go to counseling, I'll cut ties with Mark, whatever it takes. Just please don't walk away." I felt a pang of conflict within me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hold on to the hope that we could rebuild what had been lost. But another part of me screamed that I deserved better, that I shouldn't have to fight for someone who had so easily thrown our love away. "Do you really think it's that simple?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. "You can't just erase what you've done. Trust is built over time, and you've shattered mine." "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can change." I took a step back, my heart aching as I watched her crumble before me. "I need time to think," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do this right now." As I turned to leave the room, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I had confronted her, laid bare the truth of her betrayal, and now I needed to process everything. I walked out into the cool night air, the weight of the confrontation heavy on my shoulders. I had executed my plan, but the aftermath felt like a whirlwind. I had wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, but now I was left with a sense of emptiness. I had exposed the truth, but it had come at a cost. As I stood outside, staring up at the stars, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I had taken control of my narrative, but the road ahead felt uncertain. I knew I had to make a choice, to forgive and rebuild or to walk away and reclaim my life. But for now, I needed to think. I needed to process the confrontation and decide what my next move would be. The night stretched on, and I found myself wandering through the quiet streets, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The confrontation with Sarah had left me reeling, and I needed to find clarity amidst the chaos. I walked aimlessly, the cool air brushing against my skin, grounding me in the present moment. As I strolled, I reflected on everything that had transpired. I had confronted Sarah, laid bare the truth of her betrayal, and watched as she crumbled before me. I had wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the pain she had caused, but now I was left with a sense of emptiness. I had exposed the truth, but it had come at a cost. I stopped at a park bench, the moonlight casting a soft glow over the empty space. I sat down, resting my elbows on my knees, and took a deep breath. I thought about the love we had shared, the dreams we had built together, and the trust that had been shattered. I had loved Sarah deeply, and the thought of walking away felt like tearing a piece of my heart out. But as I sat there, I realized that love alone wasn't enough. Trust was the foundation of any relationship, and Sarah had broken that trust in the most profound way. I had given her my heart, my loyalty, and she had thrown it away for a fleeting moment of excitement. I couldn't ignore that betrayal, no matter how much I wanted to hold on to the memories of our love. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the pictures of us, smiling faces, happy moments, memories that now felt tainted. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button. But instead of erasing them, I decided to keep them as a reminder of what I had lost. I needed to remember the love we had shared, but I also needed to remember the pain of her betrayal. As I sat there, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could choose how to move forward. I had to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my happiness. I would not be defined by her actions, I would rise above them. After what felt like hours, I finally stood up, the weight of my decision settling in. I would go home and talk to Sarah one last time. I needed to be clear about my feelings, to let her know that while I appreciated her willingness to fight for us, I couldn't continue in a relationship built on broken trust. When I returned home, the house was quiet, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock. I found Sarah sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "James," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I've been thinking about everything you said." I took a deep breath, my heart heavy. "I have too, Sarah. I've thought about our love, our life together, and the trust that's been broken." Her eyes widened, and I could see the fear creeping in. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I can't continue in this relationship," I replied, my voice steady. "I can't pretend that everything is okay when it's not. You've hurt me in a way that I don't know if I can ever fully forgive." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head. "Please, don't say that. I'll do anything to make it right. I love you." "I know you love me," I said, my heart aching for her. "But love isn't enough. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and you've shattered mine. I need to walk away and reclaim my life." She looked down, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I understand," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry for everything." "I know you are," I said softly. "But I need to do this for myself. I need to heal and find my own path." As I turned to leave, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I had made my choice, and while it hurt, I knew it was the right one. I would not be broken, I would rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I surrounded myself with friends and family, rediscovering the joy of connection and support. I took time to reflect on my journey, to understand the lessons I had learned from the pain. I realized that betrayal, while devastating, had also opened my eyes to the importance of self-worth and resilience. I had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future. As I moved forward, I carried the memories of my time with Sarah, both the beautiful and the painful. They were a part of my story, but they would not define me. I was ready to write a new chapter, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And as I looked up at the stars that night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had taken control of my narrative, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.